I told you how I tried to fill the emptiness through sports and recreation, hunting, fishing, and then drugs and alcohol. And I want you to hear a quick story from a guy from our church. You may know him. His name is Gordy Bubolz, and he's known for being an incredible wakeboarder. He actually competed internationally and won a championship one year as a wakeboarder. But I want you to hear his story as someone that didn't go the drugs and alcohol route, but he went a different route. Let's listen to his story.
Hi, I'm Gordy, and this is a little bit about my story. I grew up in a Christian home with a good family, good parents. I attended a Lutheran school when I was younger. By the time I got to about 15 or 16, our family was in between churches, and so we basically just stopped going. And I kind of felt like I was all right with that, like I knew all the stories already, and I'd been there and done that, so it just maybe freed up some time for me. So it was really no big deal for me. So in high school, I guess my big thing was being popular. I was in with the in crowd and hanging with all the cool people, and that was really important to me. And if you looked at my life, there was really no way that you would be able to tell that I was a Christian or anything by any fruit that was coming out of my life, but you would probably just say, oh, Gordy, he's a good guy. And that's what I thought of myself too. So I would always compare myself with my friends. Well, at least my behavior's better than them, and I'm not doing that, and as long as I'm better than so-and-so, well then I guess everything's okay. So when I went off to college, I kind of felt like I was just dying inside. Like I began questioning the faith that I grew up with and asking the hard questions and kind of thinking to myself, is this whole thing of Christianity just some feel-good fairy tale designed to make people feel better about themselves? And I told my mom some of those things and some of my doubts that I was having, and she sent me a book by Josh McDowell called More Than a Carpenter, and it's a book that I would highly recommend. It answered every question that I had and answered questions I had never even thought of. So at the end of that book, I prayed the sinner's prayer, and Christ took me into his family. So my spiritual growth was kind of slow. I had always had a passion for wakeboarding, and shortly after I accepted Christ, I moved down to Florida, and I was able to wakeboard pretty much all year round. And I began winning some tournaments, and I qualified for Worlds actually, and I ended up winning that year. And I remember standing up on the podium, and I was looking out at the cheering crowd, and everyone's so happy. And inside, I'm thinking, this is kind of lame. I mean, this doesn't really fulfill me. This is everything I worked for, but it just feels so empty. So after college, my wife and I moved up to Appleton, and I think that God used some hard times really to wake me up and get my attention. And we were living in a small apartment. I was married, I had a little baby, and we were living off of our dwindling savings. And I was just dying inside. I was worried, I was stressed out. We didn't have enough money to make it through the winter. And it was really like the first time that I started pouring into and just digging into God's Word and the Bible. And it was so awesome. He brought me to verses like Philippians 4:6, where he talks about worry, and then what Jesus is teaching on worry in Matthew 6. And it was so cool. It's like this was the first time I was really reading this stuff, and I couldn't believe it was in the Bible. I couldn't believe it was there for me. And I just felt like I was so comforted, and God was guiding me with his word. And I think that's really when I started to grow spiritually, and that's about the same time that we started attending Christ the Rock too. Well, I think it's a good thing to have goals and to try and go out and accomplish things, but the problem is when those goals start to control us, it becomes like an idol. And I can tell you without a doubt that there is nothing in this world that is going to satisfy you long term other than a relationship with Jesus Christ.